And with that beautiful message about intuition, I invite you to slowly bring your awareness back into your body. Bring your awareness back into the room. And just trust that those energies from the channel will continue to stay with you for a little bit longer. And I just love how Kryon spoke about intuition because it fits in so well with our next guest. Her name is Sarah Wisman, and I want to make sure she's there on Zoom with us. Sarah, are you there?
I certainly am. Hello, hi.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we want to tell everyone about you, Sarah, but I'd like Lee to begin.
I love this whole idea of someone who can help us know more about intuition, because that's one of the biggest subjects that we're all working on, and how to tell what's what and where everything is and what it means. So Sarah Wisman is a visionary teacher of spiritual intuition. She's even got a school. I'll tell you that in a moment. She is the founder of Intuition University. Don't you love that? And has taught hundreds of thousands of students via her award-winning courses and visionary psychic training.
Now, an intuitive and channel, Sarah is the author, and I actually want to say prolific author, because she's written 16 books on psychic development and spiritual awakening. And some of those bestsellers include Messages from the Divine, The Intuitive Path, and The Mystic Way.
Well, via her Spiritual Psychic and the Mystic School podcasts that she does, Sarah has been a popular radio host for over a decade, teaching the secret language of the universe and why everything is your answer. Do you love that? We're going to ask her about that. Everything is your answer, and what it means to live from your soul. Sarah, great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm just kind of, all that bio is getting me all flustered. Oh, my goodness.
Well, don't be flustered. We just can't wait. We can't wait to hear about how all of this intuitive channel opened up for you. You know, what was Sarah as a little girl and then growing up to discover this magic that she can share with others?
Yes, thank you. Well, Sarah, as a little girl, was a hanger out in cemeteries, which seems very odd, but
yeah, I'll say, yeah.
Well, I never had anybody start the show that way.
I didn't do that in my childhood, but how amazing!
So I grew up in Europe quite a bit of my childhood, and for some reason we would always be next door to a cemetery, and back then, or back there, it was treated more like a park. And I remember just going and playing, and it was so beautiful, the trees and people's headstones and so forth. And I remember feeling it was always like a party, you know, like I could feel all the people that were departed. And I would, you know, go home and tell my mom or my dad, you know, this person said this and this person, and they're like, darling, you have such a lovely imagination. You're so creative. And so I sort of got tagged with that vocabulary for, you know, what was really happening. And I'm sure a lot of people listening, they had the same experience. You know, decades ago, we didn't have this languaging yet for the departed and intuition and spirituality. So that kind of went on. And then back in 2000, so long ago, I was in my early 40s, and I was a very mainstream person. I was a soccer mom. I was a Catholic. I was just raising a bunch of kids and just following the path sort of to the letter of what I believed I was supposed to be doing. And then three things, and all of this, the departed, none of that, it just had all gone away, or it was under the surface somewhere. I really wasn't paying any attention to it. And then three things happened in fairly quick succession. First, I was on an airplane with my three young children. One was just a little baby, and the the yellow emergency masks, the oxygen masks fell down from the ceiling. And of course, when this happens, it's not a good day. It's just not what you want to have happen.
No.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm trying to put the mask on the baby and the two other kids, and I'm pretty sure we're going to die. And then, we don't die. We end up being able to make an emergency landing. But in that moment, this is the first something cracked open, and it cracked open because of fear. But in that moment, I saw the cabin fill with what I would say like a golden light, and I knew God was there. God was in the cabin, and this was the marker of a first change. And then very shortly after, my father, who'd been sick for a while, passed, and I got to be with him sort of in these last moments. And something there cracked open in being with him shortly before he passed, watching him, all the things that happened to the body, and him being sort of in a coma. And so something else cracked open, which was through grief. And then very shortly after, the third thing was I was getting divorced from my first marriage, and which is no small thing when you have a lot of kids. It's not a small decision. And I was in the place I was going to be living, surrounded by packing boxes, and feeling this cracking open from maybe disillusionment or a loss of innocence. I don't know exactly what was cracking open there, but this man came up to the door of the house, and I thought, it's a sales guy, I'm not going to answer. And then the man came through the door, and I don't mean he came through the open door, but he came through the wood of the door. And of course, this was my first guide, which I'd never heard of guides. I didn't know what was happening. And he started talking to me, and he was in apparition form at this point, but I didn't know what was happening. And because I'd been, for many years in my career, a newspaper reporter, he started talking to me, and the only thing I could think to do is get my laptop and start get the story, take it down, And he started telling me this sort of spiritual teaching. And I don't really remember what those early transmissions were, but I know that I began to do this process where I would sit on the sofa and I would say, okay, here I am. And he would come and give me information. And at that time, it was really short. I could maybe get a couple paragraphs. And then I just got so freaked out. I just didn't want to do it. It just seemed too weird. I didn't know it was called channeling. I didn't know it was called a guide. I didn't understand anything. And so I just put that aside for quite a while, for many years. And it wasn't until I met my current husband and I finally confessed to this thing that had happened, and this thing that was sort of still starting to happen in I was beginning to practice meditation and some other things, and he said, that sounds like channeling. And I'm like, what's channeling? And that was the beginning of this journey of beginning to receive teachings. But my teachings were a bit more based on how to open intuition and how the universe is trying to communicate with us. It seems like that was the piece I've been given to help people understand. Like, the universe is always communicating with us. It's just that we're not aware of how to listen. We're not aware of how this, the secret language works. And so a lot of what I received was, how does it work? How does all this come in, and how can we make sense of it?
You are in the right place at the right time. Yeah. Absolutely, because this is one of those golden tickets that anyone who goes through awakening wants to enhance intuition. So
I can hear people already saying, I would love to have somebody walk through the door and give us stuff and write it down, and that's just not the way it's working for me. But the other thing, and you teach this in the school, but I know. But the other thing too, is it necessary or does it help to have? How is it related to your spiritual awakening with just intuition about what's going on?
Yeah, I think that what happens is so. I think that's an excellent point. We're not all going to be channels, or we're not all going to be working with the departed. There's so many ways the universe communicates, and just understanding that there's lots of parts to the language can really be useful to people. So the universe communicates. I'm just going to read a little list, but sort of thinking back to when you were in school and some kids were good at English and language, I was, and then some or whatever language they spoke, they were good with language, and some kids were good with math and science. And that was not me. Like, I couldn't do that. And some kids were good with physical fitness, and some kids were good with art. It's sort of the same thing. The universe is going to take your natural receiving method and attempt to connect with you there first and foremost. So it could be synchronicity, which is just where you're just, oh, what was that? That was weird. That 1111, 888. That was a weird event. How did that happen? Just that alone is the disruptor to your daily life, to pay attention and follow along where that's leading you. Another is all those clairvoyant type skills, or clairaudient, seeing visions, meditation, seeing daydreaming, dreaming, this sort of whole third eye aspect that a lot of people are really good at. Another part is sort of the channeling and the clairaudience that other people are good at. Other people are really, really good with the multidimensional beings, which I would include the guides, the angels, and the departed on a different dimensional level. And then there's also animals and nature, and even the objects around us, and especially the body, the people that are the deep feelers, the deep sensors, the deep empathic resonators. So there's lots of ways it's coming in.
One of the things that startled me, I think, in the bio was the expression, "Everything is our answer." Let's go there.
Yeah. So being excited and nervous to be with you guys. Yesterday I was out meditating in the garden, and I was like, is the whole Healing Wednesday thing gonna go okay, and attempting, so I couldn't get my normal way of seeing a vision, and I couldn't get anybody to come through and channel for me. So I was just out there, okay, that one didn't work, this one didn't work, now I'm gonna try something else. Is the Healing Wednesday gonna work? And I just sat there in the garden, and it was still and hot and no air moving. I just sat there. And as I asked the question, the entire wind lifted up, and the trees just started rustling around, and the birds came into the area, and it was just like, well, obviously it's going to be whatever it is, it's going to be fine. But that answer from the universe, not channeling, not a third eye vision, but just a response from nature. And so we can kind of continue to check through, how am I feeling? What's happening around me? What am I thinking about? What memories are coming up? Those types of ways of checking all the parts of the answer, or all the parts of the language, not just focusing on one.
And given that you've had a school and you've had many students now come through and learn how they can tap into their own language, because you just said we all have unique ways of hearing and receiving. What's some of the standout moments for you when you've witnessed someone that you've helped really find their intuitive connection?
Thank you. The school started back in 2000, about 10 years ago. And at that time, I just had a couple of students. And I thought, oh, I'll never get any more students. This is just a very esoteric skill. And I'm just going to be with this little group. And then as people have come, I am just stunned what people who think they can't do anything, or especially the people that are really cynical and really resistant at first, are often the ones that have the most profound experiences. There was a woman, and she'll probably listen to this, a woman recently, an artist, who was incredibly resistant to what we were doing in class, and was like, it doesn't work, nothing's working. And I said, don't worry about it too much. Just do the training really sloppy. I said, instead of sitting there all tensed out, trying to do the meditation work that we do it sloppy. Go for a walk and listen on your phone, or do the dishes and listen, or, just do it sloppy. And so she started doing it that way, which helped break down some of the resistance. And she had an experience. So we were working with the departed. She had an experience. She said, I can't do the departed. It's never going to happen. And I said, do it sloppy. And she had an experience where she came upon a person in a motorcycle accident who had just departed. He had been, and she was able to go and meet this departed as they were leaving their body and assist them in going to, they were very confused and disoriented, and assist them and be with them as they moved into the other realm. And I just thought that was amazing. After all this resistance, and here she was doing some of the most profound healing work right on the moment of an emergency situation. It was pretty phenomenal.
It is.
I totally relate to resistance. I've had a pathway of resisting and then surrender, and then resisting and surrender. So if there's anyone connecting in with us who shares that experience of resistance, what's your best advice? I know using sloppy as one technique.
Do it sloppy is great.
But is there any other techniques that can help someone with resistance?
Yeah, I like this idea of relaxing, not taking things too serious. I think for me, it really helps because I have the belief that we're here for, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So if I don't get it perfect in this lifetime, I get another shot at it another time. So, but this idea that this is innate to you. So it's not something you have to add. It's not something you have to learn. You're just really remembering how. And remembering is usually about peeling off these layers of what society told you, what your news feed tells you, what politics tells you, and just peeling it off to remember, the truth of who you are as a soul in human form.
I love the whole idea of learning a secret language of the universe, because that's what it is a truly, and just as a channeler, I had to learn the same thing very early on, that the best things happened when I was not worried about it, when I was relaxed about it, and I was doing it sloppy. And then in came the best stuff that's ever been, in the beginning for me. At least my awareness changed a lot.
Would you also say that someone trying too hard has that same attribute? It's a slightly different one to resistance, but there are those that want it so badly and they're just so trying so hard, and they get so discouraged that nothing seems to happen. What advice do you have for that situation?
That's such a good point. Because we think it's this kind of magic power that's outside of ourself. And, like when I started my own channeling, I honestly believed it was the sofa I was sitting on. I thought maybe the sofa's magic, but then it wasn't the case. But this idea of, so I like to be very cynical. I think being resistant is good. And I think finding your own way, as opposed to, and really checking out the resonance of what you're hearing from others. Like we're each we're each able to have the same experience of direct connection with the divine. And so you can go there and do this for yourself. And the more you just kind of experiment and have a curiosity about it, what will happen if I sit in nature for 10 minutes and just observe and ask a question? What will happen if I meditate and ask a question and notice what comes into my mind? What will happen if, instead of, just following blindly what everyone tells you, seeing it for yourself and trying it for yourself and seeing how that connection opens up? The other piece I would add is things tend to open up. For me, the channeling opened first, and then the guides, and then the visioning. It sort of went. I would get one little piece, and then the next piece would come, and then maybe a year later, the next piece would come. So don't expect it all to. You all suddenly, you just understand you're this omnipresent oracle. No, it's a learning process over time. It's a life journey, this opening up.
And I love that one of the things you teach is to live from the soul. And that's obviously Healing Wednesday. The soul is a huge part of this program. I would love you to share your perspective and what it means to live your life from the soul.
Thank you. The first thing that I channeled in any serious way, the first sentence was, the purpose of life is soul growth. You are here to transcend suffering. You are here to love. And then this little aside, as these guys always word, surely you know this. and it's like, yeah, I know that, but I have to remember that. But this idea of, I split things into, for my own the body, the mind / ego / personality, all is one contraption, and the soul. And so the more we can shove the mind, ego, personality to the back seat and let this larger perspective, this perspective of oneness, which is what things are, lead us. And this helps so much. We can let go of our obsession with, whatever beliefs we're following or whatever we're being told on our news feeds or in politics and our parents told us, or we can just let it all go and just exist from this place of awareness and curiosity with this understanding. We're here to transcend. We're here to go in a different path besides the small self.
What is your opinion, if I ask you, what does joy have to do with all of this?
Oh, joy. Well, I like to laugh a lot, mostly. Not when I'm cranky, but when otherwise I like to laugh a lot.
Not when I'm cranky.
You don't laugh when you're cranky? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, so joy is, life is amazing, right? It's just, it's phenomenal. And this sense of oneness, so there's no separation. It really leads to this sense of appreciation and wonder. And that's, to me, what joy is just this like, oh, wow, it's so great. And again, not every moment, but the totality of what we're experiencing is just remarkable.
I think when we laugh, it also changes our chemistry, and we get into that sloppy thing that you talk about, and stuff starts happening. It's almost like that laughter moves some of those things out of the way and puts them in the back seat, as you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know, and I think the sloppy thing, so a confession I have is when I first started, I don't know how I discovered the teachings of Kryon, but I do know I've been listening for a really long time, and the only time I could listen was at the gym. So I was like, I have a choice. I can either listen or not listen, but if I'm going to listen, the only place I can listen is at the gym.
I'm laughing because it's like Kryon saying, you've got to go work out.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
And I don't really think I don't think I have washboard abs because of that experience, but I know that my soul growth happened extremely. And so it's like, the more you can attend to your spiritual practice, whatever, that's listening or reading, but the more you can attend, the more things do change and shift in your life, and the better life is and the happier you feel, the more you can contribute back to other people, lifting them up also.
Well, you know, when
Amazing.
Kryon talked to me, said, you got to go to the gym, I said, no. That's just the way it is. I said, now you've gone too far.
Instead it's in
Now
the
you've
shower.
Yeah,
So
in the shower.
Kryon talks to me in the shower. That was a much easier option. I'll just stand
Yeah,
there
I'll
with
just stand in
water
the
over
shower.
me.
It's pretty good. Well, okay, Sarah, we're closing in on 5 minutes or so.
Oh, well, I want to tell everyone about this amazing offer she has
Yeah.
right now. There's a free mini course called Everything is Your Answer. And this is going to teach you how to use the magic of blind readings to create connections with the universe and receive guidance on answers that you have. So sarahwisman.com is her website. So SarahWisman. So sarahwisman.com. But you'll see the special link for the offer in the chat. And if you're happening to catch this on the replay, it'll be on the replay page where you can click to have the free offer. But so many books and so much information that you can get on this magic of discovering the secret language of the universe. Sarah, I'd like to hear any last words that you want to share with us before we go to break.
Yeah, I just want to give people hope. It's been a really rough couple years. It's been pretty rough, and I'm very aware. I do have a lot of laughter, but I'm very aware of the suffering that people have gone through and the loss and the grief, and so just having this sense of hope that the universe is always with us. The guides are always with us, and even when things are at their darkest, for me in the plane accident, and then in my father's passing, or even getting divorced, even in those darkest moments, like God was in the room or the divine was in the room, it's always there. And just being able to have faith and count on that and just trust it and lean back on it, that's what the universe is. We're all part of this all the time. There's no part or time that we're separate. Just kind of having this as a way of lifting yourself up even in tough times.
These are very, very interesting times. And there's a lot going on that people never expected that they would see at this time. And there's a lot of people who are empathetic with all of this and all. I tell them the same thing, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this is a transition. It's all about the cycle we're in. Is there really hope for this planet, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely. I do a monthly channel, and I'm always thinking, oh, this time they're going to be, all doom and gloom. And that's what I'm receiving also, is that this is transition. And, when we wake up, we're often kind of grumpy and getting ourselves used to the idea of being awake. And that's what the world is going through. It's different pockets of awakening with that grumpiness, but awakening nonetheless for the future.
So we have just enjoyed your conversation so much, learnt so much already, and there is tons of resources available. If you're one that struggled with enhancing intuition, I definitely recommend going and checking out Sarah Wisman. Any last words from you, Lee, before we go to...
No, I'm just loving it all. This is preaching to the choir is my favorite thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you are going to have a 10-minute break where you're jumping onto the computer, because that's what I'm going to do, so that I can have a look at those amazing offerings. And we'd like to see you back here in 10 minutes' time for our Circle of 12.